So I will go on to our next and final panelist for this session, Darey at Alade. I actually met Darey for the first time last year at the Martel building, where I held an event in Lagos, and we had an awesome conversation. It's good to see Darey again. Darey at Alade, widely known as Darey, stands tall as one of Africa's most influential creative voices. The award-winning artist and cultural architect has spent over 2 decades shaping Nigeria's creative economy. Born into music, he first rose to continental fame as a Project Fame South Africa finalist. Then, since then, his journey has stretched beyond music into broadcasting, production, and entrepreneurship. As the co-founder of LifePort 360, he has delivered iconic campaigns for global brands like Amazon, Netflix, Disney, and Meta. His production, Love Like a Movie, Live Sport X Festival, and Entertainment Week Africa set new benchmarks in Africa's entertainment. Darey has also produced top television formats, including The Voice Africa, the Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Awards. More recently, he has ventured into filmmaking, blending music, emotions, and Africa storytelling. Through Love Spot, he mentors young creatives, building the next generation of African talent. From working with Beyonce to hosting world leaders, Darey continues to bridge culture, creativity, and commerce. Welcome, Darey, to the Marketing Edge Summit.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me and see me clearly. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
So Darey, we're going to basically go into this. You telling us your perspective of what you think about creativity, storytelling from the Nigerian perspective, and how Nigeria can reclaim or position itself on the global stage in terms of our storytelling, from music, from art, just like you an icon when it comes to the Nigerian music scene. How do we able to position, or the next generation of creatives able to position themselves in the light form of where Nigerian creativity is heading globally? Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much. It's been an honor to have listened in, tuned in all the way from when Obi was speaking, and our dear Uncle Femi as well, and Sam all. And yeah, I'll share a few thoughts of mine, just tracking my thinking around the topic. I have a few slides, so we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Can
Darey, you want me to
am
look
I on
bad, eh?
now?
Your slides look great.
Sorry. Oh yeah, that was the point, Samo. You know how it is now. You know we're very competitive.
Nice one, bro.
Thank, thanks for the light remarks. So if everyone can see the slides, we'll just go right into it. I mean, it's trying to relook at the traditional creative industry, and these are just some of my thoughts and take. So for the introduction, I think some of the slides we will, of course, jump over because time is fast spent, and we have touched on, quite a few elements of this topic. But yes, as we all know, the entire industry is in a state of transformation. We're constantly evolving, and I think it's now about moving. Beg your pardon, moving beyond, what the obvious is. What's pretty much brought us to where we are today. And we've been at this for decades, and to see how we can convert all of that energy, all of that experience into this paradigm shift of actual value creation. And I think that's what we're all, get towards. You touched on some of the things that I've done, in my career and my background. And I think that, what I've been fortunate to do over the years has really, brought that unique perspective to this evolution, and I think the phrase that really drives it home for me is, by creatives for creatives. So as a creative entrepreneur and an executive, spending the last 10 years, not just participating as, maybe front of the camera, but also actively behind the scenes, building these systems that are much needed and that will, define the industry's future. And evidently, will I think it goes without saying that all of us on this call, we're all working on something that will outlast each and every one of us. So it's again, just sharing some insights, some thoughts on how we can collectively navigate this shift. How can we build a more equitable, sustainable, and impactful creative economy, right? So here we go. So the traditional creative industry, just looking at where we're coming from, where we sort of currently are trying to escape, or at least transform out of. Um, so looking back at that is that, to call out, some of the things just for us to have this conversation is that, there's a shift, right, from the content economy to a narrative economy. Uncle Femi touched on the importance of storytelling, so we won't really delve too much into that. But we have gone from just simply supplying content, just content creation in general, to becoming more deliberate architects of culture and community. And we have to strengthen that pillar, by the way. But we'll talk about, that some more in the near subsequent minutes, in the near future. The digital revolution, if we take a look at it, it totally annihilated this centralized model, right? So, value is no longer just about the creative product itself. It's now anchored in the story, the storytelling that the product sells, and the narrative, it helps to build. Evidently, nobody really wants to be marketed to anymore. It's all about emotional storytelling now to be able to, capture new audiences and really to sell products. So anyway, that's still part of the traditional, background we're coming from. Looking at it again, you see that most influential brands and artists of today, the successes that they achieve are really rooted in the ability to craft and control that powerful narrative. And that, like I was saying, is what resonates directly with the audience, especially nowadays. So that compelling narrative will can only but further deepen emotional connections. And then all of that is what we can use to transform, your hitherto passive consumers into engaged collaborators. That's where you start talking, cult following, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a strategic advantage that, of course, builds brand loyalty and builds lasting movements. Now to sort of where we are now is the new metrics. With some people have talked about it already, from the algorithm to new capital, data, and IP as well. So the key call out for me in this conversation is for us to be able to make make a dent in this new landscape. We have to discard that old scorecard, because what value is, or what it used to be is not the way we can't measure it the way we used to measure it anymore, which is by external validation, sort of, for example, charts, ticket sales, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's about influence, right? So the rise of influencers, cultural impact, and of course, most importantly, ownership of IP. And that's a strong point for us to moving forward, telling our own stories, but also owning our own platforms where we're using to tell those stories. So, yeah, another key call out for for this particular moment that we're in is data. Yes, it's the new currency. It's a very saturated phrase, but we now know that we have unprecedented access to insight, how it works, the numbers, where people are, what they're doing, from where they're doing it from. The analytics are there, the metrics are there. And this data really allows us to be a bit more precise, in our creativity, and our strategy as far as, business is concerned. And yes, the dynamics are shifting. Creators are now leveraging, direct platforms and communities to co-create value, and therefore, by extension, bypassing traditional gatekeepers, absolutely and entirely. So if I use myself, my own evolution as a case study, you see my transition from being a performer, like I said, in front of the camera, to becoming a builder. And this was a direct result of, and of course, the shift in my focus from the ephemeral fame to something that's more durable, data-driven, building platforms, building assets, and of course, being able to for me, most importantly, is to carry, that the development to carry the next generation, preparing them for what's to come. So if we look at infrastructure as our key driver, as our creative foundation, we would look at it in multiple buckets. The first bucket will be to look at it at talent. Yes, talent, having incredible talent is a great catalyst. It's definitely needed. It's not the only thing that's needed, but it's part of that underlying infrastructure that provides sustainability. So in Africa, of course, our creative industries, they require robust systems. We still have a lot of pipelines to build and develop on. We need policy support. We need funding models to scale. Obi's talked about quite a few of those things and actions that are being done in that regard. But the key point is that without these structures, the real risk that we might end up repeating this same cycle of exporting our raw talent, and it's across board, the entire value chain. So whether you're a writer or you're a filmmaker or you're a lighting tech, we've seen it, especially in recent times, where we're not able to retain any full economic value from training some of these guys, and because they're now sort of world class based on the international and local exposure and training that we've been able to give them, we risk that brain drain. So that gap that it creates, that all of these negatives, as it were, creates, is that it's what has driven us, particularly at LiveSpot, is to continue to build platforms and systems where it's not just a singular marketing vehicle, but it's an entire ecosystem where music, entertainment, the brands, and everything creative can have a strong intersection. And if we're able to sustain that, we're going to be able to continue to build the right framework. And that is like a practical example. It's a tangible solution to a really foundationally, foundational problem at its core. So that leads me to kind of reassessing the global versus local, storytelling, retaining African value. And what we've seen with African creative works is that yes, we gain global attention, but still, we see that we're looking for external validation, and we sacrifice that on the altar of that validation, because we forfeit a significant portion of that cultural value that's created. The true assessment, reassessment, as it were, also demands and dictates that we have to redefine what success is. It can't be about global charting anymore. It can't be about winning awards anymore. It also needs to now, more than ever, be about retaining local equity. Again, I refer to Obi, and I don't want to try and, repeat a lot of what's been said, but the touring circuit is a big example where it doesn't matter how huge you are as a global artist. What have you been able to do at home? What have we achieved with our local network? Taking shows on the road, taking artists and taking experiences and various, productions and platforms on the road. So we have to retain local equity, and we also have to, build on our intellectual property rights. So IP is, also up there in terms of what needs to be done. And yeah, for example, again, we'd like to talk about these things, but more importantly is actually doing something about it. And I think each and every one of us, in one way or the other, has been actively engaging various stakeholders over the last decade. And it has birthed, initiatives such as Entertainment Week Africa, which we conceived several years ago, which is really to foster development, deal making, local and global collaboration, and just ensuring that value and ownership remains anchored at home. How we're building the next generation of various creative superstars, across the value chain, where we can continue to own our narrative, tell our stories, and very, very importantly, own our IP. So yep, this leads me to this segment where we're talking about the ecosystem of creation and the power of the unseen. And for me, it's let's look at a viral moment, for example, or a hit song that just blows up the entire ecosystem. It's something that if you look behind it, it has a whole gamut of various people who are linked to that, the producers, the people who design this and that, the technicians, the managers that are behind that craze or that fad that can, that's gone viral. And if we look at the traditional way, the traditional creative industry, it really didn't really play up, these roles and these people who were behind the scenes doing, being responsible for this fad or this virality, right? The traditional creative industry really didn't, you know, pick that up, as it were. And you see that this new creator economy has to be able to recognize, reward, and integrate the entire value chain that's behind a lot of these, these viral moments or these viral elements, as it were. And I think that really just underlines the fact that there's a critical need for mentorship and training, and I think Sam, he touched on some of this in the sense of really, without, for lack of a better word, is the rules and regulation. Who are these people who are in the creative sector? What guidelines are they bound by that will help us to be able to train consistently, so that we can, the kind of quality of talent that we're churning out, is consistent, and we can build that next generation of behind the scenes builders and innovators. So it's something that we should be thinking about. And talking about thinking, legacy and long-term thinking is something that we can also look at, trying to wrap up this conversation. True creative value is not just a long-term asset. So it compounds when you invest in infrastructure, the structures that will outlive our personal careers. Yes, the spotlight eventually fades. Look at me, as an example. So as a musician, I won't say that in comparison, my current situation in comparison to the heydays, or the where the spotlight was much stronger as an artist, as putting out music, dropping music videos and all of that. So it eventually it changes, so it definitely fades. But what's the value that what have you done that you're able to do to build systems, or the opportunities? What's the legacy? That's the thing that's going to be behind, that's going to endure. So it's something that we all should take, much more seriously, because it's enough of a catalyst, to make you think about that next generation. Because you see your big artists today, your big, movie stars, and the big filmmakers, but who's got next, and we have to still, be part of that conversation. Otherwise, we tend to lose it all, when the next big thing, takes over the global world of creativity, as it were. So yeah, again, using myself, I've used myself as an example a lot in this conversation. When I began chasing the spotlight, yeah, today I find myself, being more excited, and ending up, fostering collaborations, connections, building, the next opportunity for others, and I think that this is the ultimate form of value creation, really, just that, to be selfless enough to look at what the problems are and look at how we can find lasting, solutions. So yeah, I think I recognize that guy in this last slide somehow. That's some of the thoughts that I've had, over the moments that, since when I got the brief to join this. And I hope that I've been able to, share my thoughts and share some insights, on what we can do to move things forward. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to questions and concerns and comments.
Very thought-provoking conversation. But I've got some questions here. Let me start with the first one. Where is the importance of native speakers in refining AI's cultural relevance?
I think that native speakers, great question. I think that native speakers need to embrace AI. If they are not able to embrace AI, we need to look at our AI developers, who I think Obi also talked about a lot of, through the Minister of IT, ICT, the various labs and hubs that are being strengthened and empowered, because the programming, with AI is garbage in, garbage out. You find a lot of comments online nowadays where they say, "Oh, ChatGPT, is wrong about something," or came up with an idea that, just doesn't make any sense. It's really garbage in, garbage out. So if our AI, if our cultural custodians, the stakeholders, as they were, are able to embrace AI, we're able to train AI in our own cultural way, teach it languages, teach it the history, teach it, give it all the different scenarios, because when you now start to, bank on it for, the information that it already has, that you fed it, you're able to extract, you're able to sweat it in various ways, that can, again, it becomes a conservatory of our information. We are able to store it in the cloud, able to teach it, train it, and we're also able to use that to teach the next generation. Because, you know, love it or hate it, everybody's learning in different ways now, and the next generation will be using new technology and new tools. So instead of being afraid of it, or being wary of it, I think that our cultural custodians need to embrace tech generally.
Thank you very much. One more question. How can we use AI to prioritize authenticity and cultural relevance so as to move beyond broad campaigns to embrace local voices?
Okay, I think some of the response to that question as well is from my previous. What we could also do is, I mean, education policy could embrace AI, make it more important, make it more, what's the word that I'm looking for? More, you must do this, So put it in the curriculum, embrace it from a young level, as far as the educational system is concerned, and look at what China is doing, look at what, other countries in the world are doing, catch them young, let people be able to embrace. And with time, with a very stringent program, you can see that if we do XYZ over, ABC length of time, and we do, put this effort in by year, so and so, we should be able to, and that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, it does. Thank you, Darey. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Now let's
Thank
move
you.
on to, yeah, thank you.